Good evening. It's actually not good evening. It's the beginning of episode 101 of the Jacob Wayne Show. In this week's episode, we're going to do Letterboxd reviews with my boy Dan. And just to give you a quick update, we're going to move the music type sections to one episode a month. And that'll be one full jam-packed music episode with Kellen. We kind of figured giving us an entire month to take in all the new music and the music news, so on and so forth, gives us more time to digest it and have more thoughts on it. And yeah, so other than that, it'll mostly be a movie podcast. That's what the show's going to be moving forward for at least a while. So if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. No biggie. But thanks for continuing to watch the Jacob Wayne Show. And now, movies. Welcome back to the Jacob Wayne Show. We're on episode 101, and we took a little bit of break after episode 100 because we can. We are not in high demand, so I thought it would be nice for me to catch up on painting and music and all this other stuff. But we are back, episode 101, and with me is Dan the Man Warnick. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Getting caught up on things. And, not only have we been taking a break from the podcast, but we have still been watching movies. So we were
never stopped.
Yeah. We're going to maybe do the Stephen King list for the 2000s, but long day. Did all my 10,000 steps in a band practice and did the dishes and painted a little and read a little and job hunted a little. So I'm a little brain dead. So instead of the Stephen King's list, we're just going to do some Letterboxd movie reviews. And I'm going to start off with, as far back as I can tell, the last one that we haven't reviewed yet. That is the Australian film Road Games, directed by Richard Franklin, that came out in 1981. The tagline being, "On the world's loneliest highway, it's not a game, it's murder." A truck driver plays a cat-and-mouse game with a mysterious serial killer in a van who lures young female hitchhiker victims on a desolate Australian highway. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5, and I liked it. What are your thoughts on Road Games, Dan?
I thought it was pretty good. I don't think modern audiences would love it, but for the time period, it was pretty good. If you're into 80s movies, probably. Jamie Lee Curtis did a great job in it.
Yes. I would say Stacy Keach played a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, he did a voice in Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I had no idea. But he's a guy that you see pop up in a lot of stuff. Character actor. He's been in Machete, American History X, Escape from L.A., W. He's going to be in a King movie that we haven't watched yet that's coming up, Cell.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of stuff. Look up Stacy Keach and you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy. I think in this, it's probably the most memorable role of his. Other than that, he usually plays like a virulent racist.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's nice to have him.
Or an old cop or something. Yeah, he's especially his more modern roles, he's gotten very like grizzled and much older looking than he is in this film, obviously.
Yeah.
But
It's nice to have
yeah,
him play like just a regular old sort of likable psychotic truck driver.
rather than a leader of a, you know, neo-Nazi gang.
Yeah, or the Klan or what have you. The dog in the movie does a good job. Good animal acting.
Hmm.
Let's see. What else can we break down about this movie? The reason we watched it is if you look around on YouTube, you can find little clips of anecdotes and thoughts from various directors, as you all probably know. And I was going through some Tarantino stuff, and somebody asked him what his favorite Australian films were. And he's like, no particular order: Road Games, Mad Max, and Next of Kin, which is a movie we'll get to this episode or a future one. But yeah, I think between you and me, I get a little more frustrated and bored more easily with stuff.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I was ever bored by this.
Um,
But it does go slow.
yeah. I mean, the majority of it is driving and dialogue from within the cab of a long haul truck.
Hmm.
And it's kind of surprising that can be as engaging as it is.
Yeah, I think part of the
It's
reason it kind of worked is he's always stopping and interacting with some kind of weirdo character out
yeah,
in the middle of Australia, and maybe the fact that it's Australian kind of draws us in a little bit as Americans. We're like, oh, that's a little different, a little.
yeah,
It's kind of familiar to us culturally, but obviously a bit different since it's Australia. But there is a lot of like fun little colorful characters in this. None of them really lead to much, in my opinion. Even the relationship between him and Jamie Lee Curtis is a little like, okay, I guess that's the thing.
yeah.
But I think the main thing that, other than those moments, that keeps it rolling forward is weird, interesting 70s shots and like odd choices for the editing.
Yeah.
Like just suddenly it'll be like a bright red light, and then his eye will fade into the bright red circle, and then it'll cut into the serial killer looking through his side mirror of his car or something. So occasionally it'll like kind of re-excite you with stuff like that, but in general, I don't think it ever fully fulfilled much for me.
Yeah.
I was impressed by how engaging it was for how little was going on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I give it 3.5 stars. But you know,
Yeah. I think that's pretty fair.
if they didn't have the cool little shots every now and again, it would be 3 stars. And I don't know if I would like it as much. I think it really hinges on those tiny little moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, got any more thoughts on that movie?
Not really. I mean, it was an interesting movie, but I don't think everybody will enjoy it. I mean, check it out if it sounds interesting to you, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the next movie. We we had a fun time with this one. We did it with the big group, which was perhaps a mistake in some regards, because we tend to get a little uproarious and doing drinking games and whatnot to these and talk over them, which, apologies, Dan.
Yeah.
But this movie is House. Came out in 1977, and it is a Japanese film directed by Nobuhiko Abayashi. Hope I'm saying that correctly. The synopsis is: hoping to find a sense of connection to her late mother, Gorgeous, that's her name, takes a trip to the country to visit her aunt at their ancestral house. She invites her 6 friends, Prof, Melody, Mac, Fantasy, Kung Fu, and Sweet, to join her. The girls soon discover that there's more to the old house than meets the eye. I gave this 5 stars out of 5, and I would say I loved it. What were your thoughts
Yeah.
on House?
I had seen it before, but a long time before we watched it again. Uh, it's just a very experimental, fascinating movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got like it's hard because it has elements that remind me of other films or filmmakers, but it really is a movie that can stand on its own. It's like I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like it.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially since, I mean, it was 1977. There very well could be a lot of firsts in this movie that I'm just not recognizing because I don't know cinematography history enough.
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's moments where it plays like almost like you're watching Dragon Ball. It's like or other animes. This is all live action, mind you. And then there are moments that have almost a Tarantino like quality, like kind of like the whole, and I could totally see him being influenced by this, like the group of friends just all being like fantasy, kung fu, sweet. And they're just like these colorful characters, but kind of like almost Jungian archetypes at the same time. They're not thoroughly developed, but they're quickly a presence in your mind when you're watching it. Like I loved the character Kung Fu. She just,
Mhm.
as you might expect, occasionally just having these breakout moments where she needs to use Kung Fu. And she might like knock a door down. She might fight a fucking ghost. Or just dance. And it's like kind of, I mean, that was one thing I loved about this movie was the weird rock and roll slash electro funk of it all.
Yeah.
Just with that little tinge of just Japanese influence that what I mean by Japanese influence is almost like video game in nature. It reminded me of like Final Fantasy at moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all like it's such a mixed bag of deliciousness. You know those Harry Potter jelly beans that had all the weird flavors?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like that, but they managed to make all of them taste interesting and none of them tasted disgusting. Like
Yeah.
you're not getting any vomit jelly beans, but you are getting like this one's grass flavored, and you're like, oh, huh. It's just like the whole thing's a ride. I immediately bought a physical copy. Um, Part of that reason is we were gonna watch it way earlier on HBO Max, and the link wasn't working for whatever reason for any of us. And then I think Shockey kept testing it, and then he's like, finally works. So we all were like, all right, we're gonna get in there and watch it. And as soon as I watched it, I loved it. I loved the artwork. Um, I just knew I had to own it, especially not just because it might be harder to find in the future, but just it's a classic.
Yeah.
Um,
It's got a great cat too. So
oh yeah, like if you love just cats and like weird cat moments, this is a movie for you. It's like cats and funky kung fu and haunted houses and floating heads. Kind of a vampire thing going on, but it's like not really. I don't know. I need to kind of watch it again. Like it's thick with a bunch of stuff.
no.
I'm taking a quick scan and look at this director's movies. He's made a lot. But because of Japanese film, I'm not that well versed in them. So I am excited to check out more of his stuff, though. One that's standing out to me right here is The Drifting Classroom. That seems colorful and exciting. But yeah, I just highly recommend it. And in a way, I don't even know if I could explain more of it, but we should probably move on. You just need to put it on and watch it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's kind of genre bending, but I mean it's classified nearly everywhere as comedy horror, which I think is fair, but not a complete story.
No, it's yeah, I don't even know. Comedic, rom-com, horror, action,
Surrealist.
kung
Yeah.
fu, surrealism. Yeah, yeah, all that. With that, let's move on to the next movie. We finally came back stateside for more American movies. And Dan and I have had this ongoing, like, let's watch all these lighthearted political movies, usually presidential, but sometimes they, talk about a senator or the, I don't know, election season or something. And I suggested we watch one I had seen when I was like 18 or 19, maybe early 20s. And that is the movie Bulworth, which came out in 1998 and is directed by and starring Warren Beatty. The tagline is "Brace yourself, this politician is about to tell the truth." The plot being a suicidally disillusioned liberal politician puts a contract out on himself and takes the opportunity to be bluntly honest with his voters by affecting the rhythms and speech of hip-hop music and culture. So, that's a pretty good summation of the movie, and if you cringed or your butthole tightened a little bit when you heard that, like,
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. That is 100% this movie. It is,
Yeah.
almost 2 hours straight of just cringy, it's so hard to
I
even
want to
describe.
talk to them about the pork barreling, but they were barreling the pork, you know what I'm saying? He's like doing just terrible raps and rhymes through the whole thing, and you're like, stop. Like,
And they're like trying to go for like a nice like racially inclusive message and everything, and it's trying to be like so anti-racist, but it is very accidentally racist all of the time. Like,
well, it's so condescending to African Americans and
it
the
really
African
is.
American community. And then he's just like walking through it. He's like, "Oh, like, get out the gat? What's that? Oh, you guys are telling it like it is. And maybe that's what we need in Washington to fix all the biz." And he's just doing it in front of them, and they're like, "You go, Bulworth." And it's just like, that would not be the reception.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's if he had done the accidental rapping thing, like he didn't get it, like on his second speech, and you're like, yeah, you're supposed to cringe, it's awful, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of weird, and like, to back up a little bit, I would say that the word appropriation must have not existed when they made this movie in 1998, because
yeah,
everything he's doing, they're just, everybody in the African American community that he engages with is like cool with it. Like, yeah, what a badass. He's finally saying it like it is and talking like us. And so there's not a hint of like, what the fuck is this white guy doing?
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
well, there's a touch of that, but it's more like, what a crazy cool guy. Like, it's not that he's being offensive. And if he had learned from, oh, my rapping is condescending, and then went back to just giving speeches on like, this is how politicians fuck inner city communities, it might have been good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the whole story kind of has the like white savior kind of tinge to it, where we need this old white politician to speak for the entire African American community.
Yeah.
And that'll fix everything.
Yeah.
It's just,
And spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 1998. Something I had forgotten from my first viewing was that Halle Berry's acting like she's attracted to him. And for a moment there, I was like, were they really trying to push it like she's into him? Because he's just telling the truth and that's all? But then I was like, oh, she's the person that got hired to kill him. And okay. So, like, I was at least glad they had that twist, like, all right. Yeah. It's not just, I decided to rap during the thing, and then now you're wanting to suck my thing, and it just, It's just bad, but I think I recall you saying it, and I would agree. It is kind of entertaining though.
It is, though, in a wreck sort of fashion.
Yeah, and like hindsight, what a corny, weird little '90s obscurity this is.
Yeah.
It keeps you engaged. You are kind of like waiting to see what happens next. I would say the acting, which is so hard to say, but it's like the acting's pretty good in it. Like you believe like
Yeah.
he's just this weird fucking dude thinking that rapping works.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I don't know. All the little side characters are like more entertaining than him though. He's kind of like obnoxious as fuck.
Yeah.
And back in the day, um I think yeah, this is like one of my first true like engagements with Warren Beatty. I know he played in Dick Tracy and was some other things that had a bigger impact like in the 70s, 80s. He's a pretty outspoken liberal actor type, like similar to man, what's her face that protested during Vietnam? Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I was actually listening to an audiobook about the Manson trials and the history of the CIA during that time. And there's one section where they were talking about the different Hollywood actors and actresses that were on lists for the FBI and the CIA just to keep an eye on them because they might be commies. Warren Beatty was one of them. So I don't know. I think with this Bulworth thing, he's like trying to ride that political reputation and then speak truth to power, but through a comedy film and be hip and cool because it's '98, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't function. I gave it two
I
and a half
wonder.
stars, and I ultimately didn't like it. I don't think I'll ever want to watch it again.
Yeah, I'll never watch it again. It was entertaining while I was watching it, but I never will see it again. I
Yeah.
wonder if you were to ask him about this movie now, what he would say. Any regrets? Like,
is he still alive?
I have no idea.
He's like one of those guys where I'm like, he's dead, right? And there's like, maybe he isn't.
Is he?
If you want to look that up while I pull up the next film, though, unless you had anything else to say on the film.
No, not really.
Early Don Cheadle.
Yeah, early Don Cheadle.
Playing
And
Sean
Samwise. Sean Astin.
I guess that is something of note. It was kind of a weird crossover of people. Like, it was really young actors that were going to become big, like Don Cheadle, Halle Berry, Sean Astin. And then there's, like, some of the old school guys, like Grandpa from While You Were Sleeping, but I'm sure he's, like, in bigger stuff than that.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, old school actors that are, like, known for their comedic chops. Just kind of side stuff, but...
He is still alive, 86 years old.
Maybe we should find that in our own time. Like, so how much do you regret Bulworth? Totally, or like just somewhat? He's like, I think it's a pretty good movie if you're gonna get rap and you're gonna get groovy. You're like, oh fuck, he's still doing it. So anyway, we'll move on here. In between these, we've been doing a lot of Stephen King catch-up. So the next movie we got to was Looper. 2012, directed by Rian Johnson. The tagline being, hunted by your future, haunted by your past. In the futuristic action thriller Looper, time travel will be invented, but it will be illegal and only available on the black market. When the mob wants to get rid of someone, they will send their target 30 years into the past where a looper, a hired gun, like Joe, is waiting to mop up. Joe is getting rich and life is good until the day the mob decides to close the loop. sending back Joe's future self for assassination. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. I ultimately didn't like it. What do you think of Looper?
Well, I'm a sucker for time travel movies.
Okay.
So I enjoyed it. Uh, I think it mainly hinges on a lot of the performances of like the cast. It's very star-studded. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Bruce Willis, Emily Blunt, Paul Dano, Jeff Daniels. Like
Yeah.
it is full of great actors and decent performances. The script is not wonderful. The cinematography, I think, was good to very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say
Um,
visually it's pretty great until I feel like somewhere halfway between they sort of forget that it's a sci-fi movie, and maybe that's on purpose. It kind of starts to move off to a farm and sort of becomes about something else. And there's even a part, spoiler, in a diner where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing a younger version of Bruce Willis. So future self is talking to younger self, and the younger self even brings up like some kind of time travel paradox thing. Like, don't even worry about that. It's not what this is about. Just forget about the logic of time travel. It doesn't matter. Or something along those lines. And it's like clear that through the writing, he's like, yeah, time travel's a device in this, but it's not the thing we're
yeah, it's
trying to
not what
do
the
with the
story's
movie.
about, really. It's
Yes.
just
So it kind of
a means to
shifts.
an end.
It has like a lot of universe building and setup, which is actually fairly intriguing. But I feel like it sort of drops it halfway through and becomes something else, almost like an X-Men story in my mind. I mean, I would have to revisit it again and remember the finer details, but I will say that I was in and out of it in terms of engagement. Um, but it is weird. That's why it's like solidly at 3 stars for me. And I was like, I'm really back and forth on liking it or not. And I think ultimately I didn't really like it because by the time it was done, I was like, okay, it's done. And I was just like kind of ready to move on to whatever else.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there is a lot of good stuff in it. But I think it comes down to I will not turn this into a Last Jedi rant because it's not really about that. But Ryan Johnson as a director, and I think he writes all his movies. Like, I
Yeah.
think he's
Well,
a
most of
decent
them.
director. I don't care for his writing. I think he's
Yeah.
a little smug for like something that doesn't call for much smugness.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, Ryan Johnson, I don't dislike him as much as you do, I think. I liked Knives Out,
Mm-hmm.
um, while recognizing its flaws, of course. Most of his movies I would give a 3.5 to 4 stars, depending.
Mm-hmm.
So I think very he's a solid choice for a mediocre to mediocre good movie.
I I think that the people that hated Last Jedi overuse this, but I think it is true. Where the subverted expectations thing
Yeah.
is every movie I can think of that I've watched of his has that as a thing that's like, I will subvert your expectations constantly throughout this thing. And sometimes it works really good, and other times it's just like, yep, I see what you did there. You're very clever, Ryan. And
Yeah.
he's just like, I can just picture him at his keyboard, like, like just kind of chuckling to himself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's weird because it's like at times it's like, yeah, that is a fun little twist to add to this and make it something you haven't seen before. But then sometimes it'll switch into something that, yeah, but I've seen that before, and then why are we over here now then? And I don't know. It's weird. And then it's so I think in his writing, I appreciate his desire to subvert expectations, and he is always kind of trying to flip it on its head a bit. Somewhere along those lines, it almost makes the story just flip to a different genre or a different mood. And he
Yeah.
doesn't have a big strength in character writing. He has very quippy, clever, fun characters, but they don't make a lot of sense as actual people.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're just kind of along for the ride. And if you like his humor, I guess that's kind of the thing. Is I think when we were talking about Knives Out, I really don't care for it because some of the characters are like, oh, it's almost like one of those neo-Nazi incels on Twitter. Like, it's all topical, weird, talking about shit that people don't really talk about much in their homes.
Yeah.
But then that quippy, clever writing put through Daniel Craig as a detective is entertaining as fuck. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, he these movies he makes are pretty successful.
Yeah,
Um, I think he leans very heavily on the talent to pull something out of his mediocre writing.
that's fair. He,
They're
but
they're
yeah,
doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
yeah. I think he's a good idea man. I think he has a good visual eye.
Yeah.
And then yeah, he does know how to like spin a yarn, but it's yeah within that it's like I don't know. Yeah, it is the characters like development.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like okay, I guess this is how these people are. And it's just yeah. So it comes down to do you like his humor or not because he's directed some of my favorite episodes of Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
and I think
But he
when they
didn't write those, I
that's
assume.
that's what I mean is it's like he directed awesome episodes. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. I
Maybe
think
he should just give up writing and just do the directing.
I don't know. Maybe I think he could have his cake and eat it too. Like make your Ryan Johnson-y movies because there's clearly people that enjoy them and really like them. And
Mhm.
just because I'm not that into them doesn't mean that they're not good and have value. It's just not for me. But I would say if you venture into stuff like Star Wars again, maybe let Dave Filoni write it, and then you just work on visuals and the directing.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I mean, Last Jedi I think looks great, but I mean it was
Yeah.
going to no matter what, considering what it is. But yeah, I don't know. Let's move on though. It's I could feel myself wanting to get back into that zone. So I think I'll say this: Looper's not very much for me, but I think it deserves its spot as one of the better sci-fi movies of the last 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. With that, let's get into Night of the Comet. Night of the Comet was a 1984 film directed by Tom Eberhardt. The tagline being, they came, they shopped, they saved the world. Two girls from the valley wake up to find that a passing comet has eradicated their world and left behind a mysterious red dust and a pack of cannibal mutants. With the help of a friendly truck driver, the girls save the Earth from a villainous think tank, karate chop their way through flesh-eating zombies, and of course, find time to go to the mall. I gave it 4 stars out of 5, and I really, really liked it. I don't know if it's up to love,
Yeah.
but it's very much of such a fucking 1984 movie.
Oh, it's the most 80s movie I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
It is so 80s.
after like having a confrontation with some mutant cannibal zombies, these two girls are like, well, what do you want to do? And then they go to the mall and they have a girls just want to have fun montage.
Yeah.
Which we looked it up. That song at the time was only like about a year old. So
Yeah.
we're like, oh, this is like one of the first movies to do that. And I tried to find a list of movies that, like, how many movies have a girls just want to have fun montage? I would say it's safe to assume that there's at least 10, if not more.
Yeah.
But this had to have been the first, if not one of the first for sure.
Yeah.
Crazy 80s hair, like,
Oh yeah.
the one.
Real big hair
Yeah.
everywhere.
Let's
Got,
see
like,
which character it was.
mod zombies and
Yeah.
like, oh, it's
Oh, wow.
the practical effects are very interesting. I mean, they're not like outrageously good, but they're interesting for sure. Fun to watch.
Yeah. I remember saying at the time, like, so much of the film they just put a red wash over the film.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're really getting a lot out of that. Like, for such a simple little trick, like, the sky's red. It's just like a red filter. Yeah. And, like, it kind of works. It's like sets the tone, the abandoned streets. And then, yeah, everybody turned into red dust and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, in terms... Yeah.
When we were first, like, at the very beginning, right when everybody turns to dust, I'm like, is this some sort of, like, rapture deal? Is this going to turn religious?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, for everything they introduce, it's, like, not that important. It's just like, there's cannibal mutants, and then, oh, wait, there's the think tank, and then there's this crazy mutant incel-y nerd that's, like, got a game together, and they're in the mall. What's the fucking line? He's like, I'm not crazy, I just don't give a fuck. Whatever it is. I was going to bring up that it's the two Valley girls. One's a little more like the savvy, nerdy one that, like, is good at video games, and she's a little loose with the neighborhood boys, but, like, she knows about guns. And I think they're sisters, and their dad is, like, a military guy. So they, like, kind of know how guns work to a degree. But the more ditzy cheerleader-y one, I think, is played by Kelly Maroney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at her discography. It seems like she's got a lot of fun, absurd movies that we should maybe check out at different times. One is called Hell's Kitty. Chopping Mall is one that we have to watch this October that Neil and I have watched.
Yeah.
One called Not of This Earth, The Zero Boys. Seems like, just a lot of fun, silly B movies. Oh, she's won Exorcism at 60,000 feet and a plane coming out of, like, a skull mouth. Like, all right. But in Night of the Comet, she's like, the whole first half of the movie, like, she's just going through unaffected by any of this. So, like, what? Where is everybody? You're gonna ruin my dress. Like, and it's like, I think I called out Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's like, this is like that. And then when I was doing a little bit of research on it, I think Josh Whedon made the movie for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, didn't he? Either way,
I think so. Yeah,
the person who came up with the movie is like, oh, Night of the Comet is a huge influence on Buffy. It's just this sort of oblivious in the middle of apocalyptic monstrosities. Just like, man, I fucking want to. I can't believe you're talking to me like that. Like, I mean, the soundtrack's sweet. Some of the
it's mostly
is fun. Yeah, I don't know.
Most of the soundtrack is just 80s songs.
Yeah, 80s
like they don't have like a score.
Or weird
it's just 80s songs.
Well, there's some like synthy, like
a little bit, yeah,
here and there. Oh yeah, and then one of the Valley girls, like, Welcome Back to the 80s, is just oddly really racist.
Yeah.
To, like, think it's Robert Beltran, his character. He's just like, Hector. Like, just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Should calm down. He's apparently in that weirdo Oliver Stone Nixon movie that I've been wanting to watch. Speaking of
Yeah.
political movies. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's just absolutely one of those movies you throw on with your buddies and just
Oh yeah.
yammer over it while it's on.
Not one to watch alone, I don't think. I mean, you'd enjoy it alone, I think, but it's definitely a group watch. You know, it's a popcorn on the couch with friends kind of movie.
If you watch it alone, do it when like you're sick and on a little bit of NyQuil
Yeah.
or maybe some edibles or
Yes.
something. You're just like, oh, a weird one. Yeah. Anyway, I would highly recommend it if you're into that type of like cheap weirdo cinema.
Yeah, similar in like tone, I guess, to like The Stuff
Yeah.
or that kind of movie.
Shopping mall, which we will get to.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's a little more lighthearted and fun, but probably closer to Gremlins than it is to Reanimator.
Yeah.
But it's like
Maybe a
sort
little
of somewhere in
Killer
between.
Clowns from Outer
Yeah,
Space, a little bit. Yeah, that kind
yeah,
of thing.
definitely. Well, sweet. With that, I wanted to kind of chunk the next group of movies together. So maybe we'll call it good there, but let's go over to movie news real quick and see if anything has been going on. I think it's big enough news that you don't need to listen to this podcast to know it, but I'm guessing the writer's strike is over? As they officially
Uh,
signed something?
I don't think it's official yet. I just heard there was a tentative deal, but I could be wrong on that.
And I was, I'm pretty sure it has, but I'm not 100%. And I was reading something which makes a lot of sense to me, that during strikes, that one side sometimes will like leak a story, like we're real close to a deal,
Yeah.
to sort of push the other one into settling. Because it's like, obviously, nobody enjoys these strikes. Like,
Yeah.
anybody who does is just like probably into it for the wrong reasons, just simply trying to get what they deserve out of it. But it's like, yeah, everybody would love it if it got resolved and whatnot. So, push the story, puts a little bit of pressure on the other side. But from what I understand, I think they have come to an agreement. And as somebody who's conscientiously not dove that much into it, I know what side I'm on with it. I don't necessarily need the details. I don't think anybody's gonna like present something and I'm like, oh yeah, the poor studios. I didn't think about that. But I was kind of hoping they'd have a deal that was like the writer's strike and the Screen Actors Guild mutually agreeing together on something.
Yeah.
So if the Screen Actors Guild wasn't getting what they needed, the writers would hold out, but I don't know. Maybe that has been figured out, and I don't know, but let's hope that all that gets figured out and they get what they deserve and Dune will come out. Cuz that Dune delay pissed me off. I understand, but I would like things to sort of get back to some sort of normalcy. I am scrolling through the news though, and I will leave the site nameless, but this site is really starting to suck. Too many opinion pieces, not enough information. You got anything on your end?
Very minor one. Apparently Stephen King tweeted about a Hulu movie and called it truly unique. It's No One Will Save You. I'll probably have to check that out.
Okay.
No One Will Save You. Brilliant, daring, involving, scary. You have to go back over 60 years to a Twilight Zone episode called The Invaders to find anything remotely like it. Truly unique. So I'll have to try that out.
Yes. That being said, King is not a reviewer that I necessarily trust.
That's true.
I love him as a writer and a creator, but going back over times, I've heard him like give a movie a like scared the hell out of me, and then you go watch it and you're like, all right. They give you a free trip to Cabo or something for that one, Steven. But that being said, I probably would agree with him more often than not. Maybe just the level of enjoyment is what shifts.
Yeah.
Here's a headline for you. The Daily Show is set to return with all-star guest hosts through the rest of the year. So they have not found a permanent replacement for that show, and I don't know. In your opinion, do you think Daily Show is even a thing that should continue this day and age?
I haven't seen it in so long that I can't give an accurate answer to that. So I don't know.
I think
I
it needs to go on to streaming, and it needs to have the frequency that Daily Show had, but it's on a streaming service. I don't know how hard that is logistically, but
yeah.
Comedy Central is just like nobody's watching that anymore.
No.
And yeah, it's
Cable
like
in general.
I think Trevor Noah is a clever fella. He's had some takes I like. I never found him particularly that funny. I feel like a lot of the energy that was there during the Jon Stewart era went with John Oliver to his show on HBO. So maybe Daily Show becomes more of a weekly thing on a streaming service. I don't know. I mean, they did only do 4 days a week, but I used to love watching Daily Show, but I could hear an argument that somewhat of the taking the piss style of the Daily Show maybe overall had a negative effect on news media.
Yeah.
And just everybody has to do like weird little piss takes, and every late night show is politics now. And it's like, I don't want to hear any political shit from Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with him or not. It's just like, nah, like I do miss old school Letterman type stuff where he'd touch on politics every now and again, and you knew where he leaned, but it just wasn't the structure of the monologue or anything. And yeah, I think stuff like John Oliver is good enough. Deep dive on a subject once a week. I can kind of get my political humor that way, but even that I don't throw on that often. I have to really be in the mood, and maybe that's just because politics have gotten extremely exhausting and frustrating.
Yep.
Probably like it had been that way for a long time, but it really started to go up a notch in 2016 for some reason. I can't really remember why. That's enough politics. There's a Toxic Avenger remake that I'm curious about with what's his face? Not Samwise. Frodo. Yeah, Elijah Wood. He's gonna play some kind of weirdo in that, and
yeah,
excited to see.
We were talking about it a little bit last night, and I just really admire Elijah Wood for basically doing just whatever the fuck he wants now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's fantastic just to see that.
Much agreed. Here's another one. Jodie Foster is going to be in the next season of the anthology series True Detective. That comes out in January 2024, so maybe getting some slight Clarice vibes. We'll see.
Have to see.
Did you ever watch True Detective season 2 or 3? You probably watched the first one.
Oh, definitely watched the first one. I did watch season 2, although I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I'd have to revisit it. I remember the first season fantastically because, I mean, that's pretty much universally regarded as the best one. But
great story.
I don't recall.
Fukunaga
I watched 3.
Did season 1. I think he left for season 2, so totally different vibe. I think universally the second was like pretty panned after the awesome season 1, and then I think 3 was an improvement, but enough people had kind of lost interest since season 2. But I'm glad they're still doing it. I think I like too that it's a anthology series, so I can just
Yeah.
hop into this fourth one with Jodie Foster, and if I like that, then all right, I'll give season 2 and 3 a shot.
Yeah.
Um, Fargo's a lot like that. They're apparently readying a fifth season of that,
Wow.
and Fargo season 2, 1 and 2 I really loved, and then I started season 3 and just lost access to it. I think that's with Ewan McGregor playing twins or something.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just never got back around to it, so I don't have an opinion on season 3. Just other than I started it a little bit and lost access. First 2 seasons
Yeah.
great though, and they definitely function separately from each other. But yeah. I think with that, oh, I'll throw it out there. There's The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar. It's a short film by Wes Anderson that they just throw up on Netflix. So
Hmm.
there's that for those that like Wes Anderson. I have to struggle to watch all of his films, so I don't know when I'm going to watch that short. But yeah, got anything else?
I don't think so.
Alrighty. Well, with that, I think I'll wrap up with saying that it's John Hamm in the cowboy town in Fargo season 5. That's what I was trying to find. And that
Hmm.
is all. With that, we'll wrap up episode 101 of the Jacob One Show. We back up in this. Maybe I should learn to rap the next episode we do.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it then.
Okay.
Anyway, ta-ta! Bye! Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fogkoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.